sure by this point now you've heard about the most recent update to World War II, whether it be via your sub boxes, a lot of people covering it, whether it be via Twitter, wherever you may get your Call of Duty news from and your information, or maybe just firsthand you ended up coming across the Reddit notes of the update, or you figured it out for yourself in-game without going to any of these third-party sites. It's something in which there was an update yesterday that covered a couple of things, not all that many bases, but two of the big things that did end up getting adjusted were the fire rates of the M1928 or the Thompson and the MP40, to which now afterwards it's kind of changed a little bit of the meta within World War II. I honestly couldn't give you an accurate representation of just how much just yet because it's still very early on. It's still just over 24 hours now at this point. We're still in that first day of adjusting to the new patch and new update for these weapons, but no doubt immediately thereafter this was introduced, these changes to these weapons, people started to take notice and people started to dub these weapons the God guns, the overpowered weapons, the best guns in World War II. Whatever it may be that you have heard, which one's actually better? Because both got adjusted, but are either of them actually superior, or do they actually stack up statistically as being the best SMGs now? Well, that's what we're gonna break down here in this video, taking a look at some of the in-game statistics, taking a look at some of the testing, and of course, giving my thoughts and feedback here on all of it, and maybe you guys can decipher your own opinions as well off of this, but I also challenge you guys to test out both, play around with a little bit, and see which one you like more, because some people might just see a video labeled the best gun in World War II, which is the Thompson, or maybe another one of the opposite side in which it says the MP40, and you just go with that one. So, which one is better? Let's jump into a little bit of a comparison here with this one. So, firstly, before we get into it, I want to set up a basis of what really is going to be compared here, that being the damage, the fire rates, and the recoil. The fire rate, of course, was that of what was buffed, so this is going to be directly comparing these new values, not ones that are obviously in the past, but those three are the big three statistics we're going to be taking a look at that really determine probably that time to kill, that effectiveness in close quarters gunfights in those scenarios in which you want to get those kills off. So firstly, let's start out with a Thompson or the M1928. Now, this statistically is a 4-shot weapon at its max damage. So that is a damage property of 30 per shot. So if you end up doing that once again, 30, 30, 30, that's 90. So you need that 4th shot to round it off, regardless of the multipliers of a 1.1 for a headshot. So it will take you 4 shots at the very least to kill with the M1928 if your enemy is at full health. Of course, if they are weakened already, that helps out greatly, but still doesn't change the actual hard-coded statistics. As for the rate of fire, this is what was adjusted. It was brought up a little bit here, but still it's something that you can totally notice. It is brought up to roughly right around the 900 RPM mark, which is something that the calculations I made, I'm fairly certain are very close to being pinpoint accurate, but could waver in a little bit here. But nonetheless, 900 RPM, making it one of the fastest firing things in the game, but that is something that is the forte of this weapon, the keystroke of this update, and what a lot of people are using to the advantage of saying it is the best gun in the game, simply because it does fire off so fast now. But one of the big counters is the recoil, which is once again that other big property I talked about that we'd mentioned, and truth be told, it is very apparent within the M1928 after this because of that rate of fire increase. And to make matters worse, one thing that I'm not a fan of within World War II is the random patterns of recoil. You can get a general sense of them, but World War II has taken the degree of randomness a little bit of a step further than previous titles, but nonetheless you can end up deciphering a little bit of a recoil pattern, though probably not pinpoint precise for every single time, but the recoil is up and to the right, sometimes straight up and slightly right, sometimes mostly right, and sometimes a straight 45-degree angle up, but majority of the times you'll have it up and to the right. But as we mentioned, because of that increase to the rate of fire, it's much harder to control now compared to what it was, and of course, if we're going head-to-head like we will be going with the MP40 in just a second, it's noticeably harder to control. Now, as for the MP40, this is where we're going to start to see once again these differences in where they'll start to break away from each other. Now, the damage that we mentioned for the M1928 was 30, the MP40 has a damage property of 34 per shot, statistically making that a 3-shot weapon at its closest range, which is actually a carbon copy of the damage from Advanced Warfare's MP40, for those just wondering, a little trivial fact added in on top of that. As for the rate of fire, once again, this is the updated rate of fire, and it's a slight buff, but it brings it now around to the 716 RPM mark, which is slower than the MP40 in Advanced Warfare. But the recoil itself, once again, a reminder that the recoil patterns have a degree of randomness for each individual time you hold down the trigger, but the slower rate of fire works in its favor to adding more control to that recoil pattern. It's something that is much easier, once again, as we mentioned, with the MP40 to control that, but it still does offer the same general recoil pattern up as we saw with the M1928, where it goes vertical and then veers to the right a little bit. Though it seems like the MP40 has a little bit more straight up vertical rather than over as much, but still happens, still has that degree of randomness that is thrown in and generated with the recoil as well, so you gotta keep that in mind, but it is still easier to control. But really what these end up coming down to, because we see these differences in the damage and the rate of fire, they kind of flip-flop in the properties, and of course the recoil comes down to control and how much you can control it with either the grip or just the manual pull down on your right thumbstick. But one of the big things, of course, comes down to aim. Now, I'm not gonna actually talk about the aim that you yourself can control, but more so aim assist, because the only thing is that the aim assist on these weapons both are drastically low compared to former years, or at least what I've picked up on from feeling it out and playing with these a lot in the past day. Not sure if it's just me or not, but even given overall, aim assist feels weak on weaponry within World War II all throughout. I feel like that's something I've seen here and there pop up in discussion, but really not anything that has been incredibly overtaking in the swell of comments from the community, but I feel like I've heard enough to actually feel like I'm not crazy when making that statement. But the MP40 and the M1928 to me feel a little bit above standard that rates of aim assist in terms of the lack thereof of aim assist. I feel like you can totally just graze over an enemy and not really have any pull, even though they could be right in front of you. But maybe that's just me once again. I don't know. That's something that, having once again played with these a ton, maybe I'm just burnt out and I have kind of created this stigma in my mind that the aim assist is a little wonky, but I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy, maybe I'm not, but want to let you guys know about that, to use that information how you will. But that said, directly comparing the two, once again, they're still really very similar to each other in a lot of aspects that kind of counterbalance as to maybe not necessarily pushing one drastically ahead of the other, whereas once again the M1928 has a damage of 30 and the MP40 has a damage of 34. The MP40 reigns supreme in that extra shot that you can end up using, or saving rather, to get that kill in the same amount of time, but then also on the other side, the M1928 has that faster fire rate by about 180 RPM, which can once again come in handy, but it also comes down to recoil, how much it's controllable, to which I'd probably give the MP40 that crown on top of it, but I guess it comes down to personal preference. But if I were to give you right off the bat one that maybe makes this a little bit more superior, if I were to suggest one, I think that I would go against popular belief here, and that popular opinion at the moment, the Thompson is the god gun in World War II, that it is the best gun. I think I'd honestly put the MP40 over top the M1928 Thompson in World War II. But with that said, I'm also incredibly burnt out on these weapons, trying to test these out, get this information in the last day and a half or so since this update went out. I'm incredibly burnt out. I've used these weapons more than I'd care to admit, and a lot of the times, a lot of the matchmaking didn't work in my favor, so more so frustrating than anything else. So I probably won't be using these much more at all, or at least for a little bit of time until I come back to them with camo challenges and everything. But if I were to give you my personal opinion on this, I think the MP40 is probably the one that reigns supreme, but again, comes down to feel. They both have those interchangeable characteristics where they do beat out each other, but kind of weave in and out of which one takes the crown for individual statistics. But that said, I think that's where we're gonna wrap it up. I wanna let you guys know about this, give you my thoughts on it, because once again, this is a massive thing of discussion right now, which of these two are better, because I've seen so many people on Twitter, on YouTube, on Reddit talking about these weapons in the sense that one is definitely better than the other, and really I wanted to take a look at and show you guys really that they are very similar, but of course there are some slight edges that each of them have. But whatever you may feel on these, feel free to let me know down there in the comment section down below. A lot of this will come down to feel, and a lot of this definitely may be in the eye of the beholder, because not everybody plays the game the exact same way, so somebody may have a better feel with the M1928 than I do, and therefore might think the Thompson is drastically better. But of course, that's where I value your feedback and input, so let me know your thoughts down there in the comment section down below. Love to hear your thoughts. Of course, hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. If you guys did, make sure you drop a like down below. If you guys want to see more stuff like this in terms of statistical breakdowns, I'm totally cool with doing this. I love breaking down the numbers, crunching them, and bringing you guys something like this. So if you want to see more, feel free to let me know as well. But if you guys are new to the channel, make sure you guys subscribe. We're on that road to 100,000 subscribers. Oh, so close. And of course, if you guys want to stay up to date with anything regarding Call of Duty World War II, best tips, tricks, news, information, class setups, leaks, information, whatever it may be, make sure you stick it here so you don't miss a single thing. And finally, if you guys want to follow me over on Twitter, that's the best place to get connected with me outside of YouTube. I practically live on Twitter, so if you guys want to strike up a conversation, ask me a question, whatever it may be, link is down there in the description below. But all that said and out of the way, hope you guys had a fantastic day. Thanks so much for watching. Mine is Espresso. I'll see you guys later. Take care, and peace.